From Studio FMH in our Bronx studios, this is Box Score, the ultimate online sports talk show. My name is James Cargan, and alongside me is John Iorio and Dan DiOrio, two nice Irish boys. Thank you for joining us. And Dan, I know that you've had a tough weekend with your beloved Bronx Bombers.
Yeah, absolutely. The Yankees losing was absolutely heartbreaking, but at the end of the day, I didn't expect this team to be here at the beginning of the season. Happy with the progress they made, so I can't really complain.
I mean, well, if we're being realistic here, they did lose. They won 3 games in a row and then lost 2 in a row. So, I mean, that's not ideal, you know?
Absolutely, it's not ideal, but it's more ideal than the Mets' current situation. And also, I'd just like to say that the Yankees took a rebuild 7 games deep in the ALCS. I think that's really underrated.
Well, you seem to be satisfied now. You weren't quite satisfied during the game, where when I was sitting in front of you on our van ride home, you were repeatedly punching the chair that I was sitting in frustration. Why the change in attitude now?
I mean, of course it sucks when they lose, but at the end of the day, I was predicting that they were going to lose this series. If you listen to our On Deck podcast on WFUV, I stated that I think the Yankees will come back and win a couple games, but I don't think they'll win the series, and that's exactly what happened.
Now, you reiterated throughout the season that this Yankees team was different. At the end of the day, they showed that they were not different. What say you?
I disagree. I think they showed completely that they're different. This team is way different than Yankees past, and now
Yankees past one World Series. That's the difference.
What do you mean one World Series?
They've won the World Series. The teams in Yankees past, they've made the World Series 40 times. They won the World Series 27 times.
Right.
This team did not accomplish that.
Well, that
makes them different.
It's also a very different Yankees team in the light where they're not relying so much on veterans. Besides the contributions from Aroldis Chapman and CC Sabathia, 90% of the Yankees' offense and pitching was coming from young guys who have made their debut in the last 2 or 3 years. So I'm really proud of the young guys.
That's a good point. Yeah, the young guys, they had great seasons, but when it's all said and done, they need to learn how to hit curveballs and breaking pitches. Otherwise, they're not going to win any World Series.
Absolutely.
The Mets hired a new manager this week, Mickey Callaway from the
Cleveland Indians.
That's the Red Sox.
Right.
He was the Indians pitching coach. I know you're a Mets fan, right?
Well, this hiring certainly was not expected. It was a little bit off the beaten path. Callaway was not on the so-called short lists for the Mets managerial job, but I trust Sandy Alderson. He made a good decision the last time with Terry Collins hiring him from the Los Angeles Angels, and I have trust in Mickey Callaway, especially in the pitching side of things. The Mets have to revamp somehow how they are treating and using their pitchers, because it's just been a disaster these past few years.
I agree with that. It's definitely a good hire, considering he's a pitching coach, so maybe he can help these guys out, the young pitchers. So we have some really talented pitchers. Also, something that I thought was interesting was it looked like the Yankees were going to fire Joe Girardi when they got down early on in the postseason, and there were rumors that the Mets were going to steal Girardi away. I was really looking forward to that. And then Girardi coaching the Mets to a World Series, it would have been something. But
yeah, Dan, you're shaking your head as if you weren't calling for Girardi's head just a couple of weeks ago.
That's not the case at all. I find it very funny that Mets fans even have this dialogue, like hypothetically that maybe Joe Girardi will come to their team and lead them to the World Series. It's very comical to me. I mean, it's not like it's an automatic thing. Joe Girardi, obviously a great coach, but the Mets are far from a World Series from my point of view.
Well, they were only in the World Series 2 years ago and have most of the exact same core, just getting unlucky with injuries. Is it surprising to you that Dusty Baker is still on the job market? It's a little bit surprising to me. I know he's had his postseason struggles, but he's seemed to improve every team that he stepped in for.
I think Dusty Baker will eventually find a landing spot, but I don't really blame the Nationals for doing what they did. Unfortunately, they had to part ways with him at the end of the season, still struggling to find their first playoff series win. I don't think the Nationals have time to waste, so I kind of agree with firing Dusty. You have to give Bryce Harper and Trey Turner and the young guys an opportunity to win, and you need to do that sooner rather than later. So I agree with what the Nationals did.
Yeah, I agree. They need to change. I mean, they really put the pieces around Bryce Harper. They brought in Murphy. Zimmerman had a great year. Rendon had a great year. Their pitching was great this whole year. So if that's not working, it's definitely time for a change. In the NBA, there's been some crazy stuff going on lately. Just today, Eric Bledsoe, star point guard for the Phoenix Suns, is on the trade market after just 3 games. So you've been following what's happening?
I have.
Well, it's interesting to know why he's on the trade market because of his cryptic-esque tweet saying simply, "I don't want to be here."
Right. And rather than like most sport athletes, this tweet got left up. It wasn't deleted within the first 5 minutes and then reposted screenshots. No, the tweet's still up. And I think Eric Bledsoe speaks a lot to the current status of the Suns. They've been struggling. They fired their coach 3 games into this brand new NBA season. So the Nets, just like the Nationals, need to turn it around sooner rather than later. They have the young core, they have young pieces, and they need to get back to winning.
What's amazing to me was his excuse for the tweet. He said he was at the hair salon, and that he did not want to be at the hair salon at the time that he sent the tweet, which of course is completely ridiculous. And the Suns have since cleared house, basically. They fired their head coach and several other members of the staff.
Absolutely. I mean, I don't really think they have an option. When your starting point guard has an issue with your head coach, you have the choice to decide between the players and the coaching staff. And it's always coming down to the players if I'm the GM or if I'm in the front office.
Yeah, and this summer they were shopping Bledsoe around. He requested a trade. And it's going to be interesting to see where he lands because there could be a good team that picks him up or a bad team like the Knicks. You know, the Knicks could pick him up and they need a point guard. So it'll be interesting how we could see the landscape of the NBA change from this trade.
One thing that we've seen so early this NBA season was injuries. A lot of starting point guards got injured. Dennis Schroeder from Atlanta. Gordon Hayward's not a point guard, but he's out for the season. Jeremy Lin on the Nets. Injuries like that, you know, you got Isaiah Thomas injured and now even Derrick Rose in Cleveland. Does that open a trade possibility for Eric Bledsoe to go to one of those teams?
Of course. I think Brooklyn definitely could use some depth, some starting pizzazz at the point guard position. The Cleveland Cavaliers, of course, lost Derrick Rose for some time. The Chicago Bulls need players from every position.
Chris Paul needs a replacement.
Chris Paul is out now for a little while.
The only problem with that is, though, since there's so much interest, it's really going to drive this value up. So you're really looking at giving away pretty much 2 players if you're a team trying to get Bledsoe. So a lot of teams could end up giving up a lot, which wouldn't be ideal since there's a lot of interest, and I bet the Suns have a lot of offers. But
so if you're the Cleveland Cavaliers, would you trade the first-round pick for Eric Bledsoe, the Brooklyn Nets pick?
No, absolutely not.
Absolutely not. I want to focus a little bit now on the National Football League real quick. The New York Jets looked like they were sitting pretty. They were up 28-14 on Miami at Hard Rock Stadium, and Josh McCown was actually playing well. The worst-case scenario for the Jets happened that Jay Cutler got injured for Miami, and they wound up winning the game after one of the worst passes you'll ever see from Josh McCown.
Yeah, the Jets are a joke football team. It's pretty sad. I'm glad I'm not a Jets fan when I watch their games, but it's like they go into the game wanting to win, and then midway through the game they're like, nah, we might want to lose, and we want a higher draft pick. So
I think they need to decide what they're going to do. Are they going to tank, or are they going to, give it?
Well, they can't 100%. Tank at this point, really.
It seems like they're going for it, considering how they played.
That's what I'm saying, and that's been the whole mentality of the Jets, even since for a while now. Like signing Josh McCown, instead of bringing in a young quarterback, I just feel like their priorities are a little hazy.
Yeah, they definitely don't have a starting quarterback of the future on the roster, though, which is a problem. So they're sliding down the draft board now, and they got to figure out what they're doing. So
absolutely. Well, unfortunately, that's all the time we have here for the box score. That'll wrap it up. Stay tuned for next week's episode. Thanks to my co-hosts James Corrigan and John Iorio.